I've paid thousands of dollars in courses to learn what you're basically teaching on your podcast for free. What you're putting out there is so valuable. So, I just really want to acknowledge you, and I definitely send everyone to your podcast.
You were virtually one of the first mentors that I looked up to and started following. You're always one step ahead of the game. So I just wanted to give you kudos and props for that, because lots of people are watching, lots of people are learning from it.
Tucker and the whole TTM crew, Dan and Chris, thanks so much for your support. I love what you guys do, and a huge fan. Having this support's huge. So I'm grateful for that.
What's up, everybody out there in listener land? This is the Real Dealz podcast, and we're having a heat wave here in Portland. And of course, I am your host, Tucker Merrihew. I want to thank you guys for joining me for what is going to be a very hot episode. We're supposed to break 100 today, which, for June in Portland, it's pretty hot. If you're in Phoenix, you're probably like, And if you're some of the folks that I know down in Texas, you're probably like, don't be such a Nancy, right? 100 degrees. That happens at like 7:30 in the morning down there. That and in Phoenix and a number of other places. But for here, it's hot. So I'm sitting here. I'm in front of our latest project, and I'm waiting for Joni to show up so we can walk it and we can figure out exactly what we're going to do with it. Pretty cool deal that I'll talk about a little bit here, but it spurred an idea for a show that I wanted to record that I thought about earlier in the week, but it just kind of came to fruition that this deal came together last night, actually. And, the topic of the show, I had picked it previously, and it kind of fits, very nicely. So I thought, you know what, let's record a show and we'll talk about this week's topic, which I'll get into here in just a second. Now, before I do that, I want to thank you guys who listened to last week's show, who reached out, who set up calls for our REI Deal Generator program that myself and Justin Silverio are doing, which is basically a high-end 2-on-1 coaching program for 6 months every week, and then another 6 months after that to help you get your business up and running and to basically get your lead flow and deal flow to a consistent basis, so you basically have a business then that you control for the rest of your life after you're done with this. So I want to thank you guys for reaching out and setting up calls. I talked to a number of you guys last week. We've got a bunch of other calls set up this week, and we're excited, man. Round 3 is going to be awesome. Round 2 has been amazing. We've got some great folks in there, but round 3, as we continue forward here, we just get better and better at what it is that we're trying to do for you guys. And I very much appreciate all of you guys that put your trust in us and set up calls so that we can chat and see how we can help you. So if you have not already, make sure that you go to the reidealgenerator.com and just schedule a call, and you can chat with myself and Justin Silverio and see if it's a good fit for you. Now, the point of this week's show is not to talk too much about that, but it's to talk about a topic. I'll say that 3 times fast. It's to talk about a topic that I'm sure many of you guys are very interested in. And that topic is free marketing. Now, I talk a lot about direct seller marketing, which generally costs money, right? You have to have a marketing budget in order to do most direct seller marketing. Now, there's lesser expensive ways to do it that you can kind of couple with the more expensive ways to kind of leverage your marketing abilities or bandwidth when you're doing direct seller marketing. But there's a whole nother, we'll call it, category of marketing that you can do that's essentially free. It just takes time. And it takes time to get results from it, same as direct seller marketing. But once you build that out, it can be a constant reoccurring deal stream for you. And I know a lot of people that use this strategy very, very well, but it takes a concerted effort, just like it does with direct to seller. And so we use it a lot in our own business. I don't talk about it that much because it's fairly intuitive, but I wanted to break it down on this show. And it's a great way in my opinion, and I'm sure in many people's opinion, to kind of mix this with your direct seller marketing efforts in order to really help bolster your deal flow and your lead flow, and just to have leads and deals to look at every single week that come in free as well, right? So if you take the dollar cost average of all your leads, if you have free leads and paid leads, at the end of the year, it just gets your cost down, right? And there's no reason not to do it. It just takes work. And so what I'm going to talk about this week is network marketing, right? Marketing for deals without money, marketing with time and relationships. And when people say that, it sounds great, but they rarely break it down on exactly how it is that you want to do it. So I'm going to break it down on this week's show on exactly how we do it, how a number of people in our Deal Finders Academy do it, and really what the most effective ways are in order to essentially have network marketing working for your business on a daily basis, which is essentially free. Minus the time, of course. So that's going to be this week's show. And, it also spurred me this week because we had somebody that I'm doing some one-on-one consulting with. They just made 31 grand doing a very simple thing that's network marketing that was free. Get a list, send some emails, find a deal, put it together, flip it out. I'm not going to say his name, but it was an awesome deal. Didn't cost him anything to do. And now he can rinse and repeat, and he can work that same channel over and over and over again. So I'm going to talk about that and a number of other things that I know you guys are going to dig. Now, before we get into that, first thing I want to talk about is a housekeeping item. Number one is our Driving for Dollars app. For those of you guys that are using it, thank you. For those of you guys that are thinking about using it, you should. There's 3 tiers right now, soon to be 5, which I'll explain here in a minute. But the first tier is only $20 a month. So for those of you guys that use the app the way the majority of our users do, we set up a tier that's only $20 a month for you to be able to have the tool in your palm of your hands to be able to skip trace on the fly and find out who owns any property and how to get in touch with them. A variety of different ways so that you can either market to them, cold call them, whatever you want to do. Mail to them, smoke signals, pigeons. It's up to you what you want to do after you get the skip trace information. But for $20 a month, you have this on your phone. It works all over the country. And it's just a tremendous deal, especially considering how much it costs to actually build this thing and maintain it over the years. I mean, $20 a month to have this tool, it's crazy. 5 years ago, this type of stuff did not exist, and now you can get it for $20 a month. So go sign up for it if you have not already. We've got some really cool stuff coming out on top of what's already available, as I've talked about before. Should be available within about a week here. We're going to have another tier that you can do massive skip tracing if you want to, and then a kind of a different type of tier that allows you to just build massive lists. So it's just a list building tool that then you can export, and we can actually do the skip trace for you outside of iTunes, outside of the app, or you can skip trace it yourself, however you want to do it. But with that, you can set up as many users, within your team that you want, or if you have Uber drivers or Lyft drivers or whatever that are pulling properties for you as they're driving around that maybe need work or dilapidated or whatever, they just create a list under your account, boom, and they can export them to you, or you can see the list as soon as they create them, and it'll be a really inexpensive tool that you can use for your business. So we're trying to make it very, very cost effective, so it's just a no-brainer. Now, the other housekeeping item that I want to mention before we get into the main part of the show is our Deal Finders Academy. So for those of you guys that maybe you're not looking for high-end one-on-one or two-on-one coaching, but maybe you want to be a part of a group or a group mastermind, as we call it, which is our DFA or our Deal Finders Academy. If you're interested in that, we'd love to have you. We've got a few openings across the country. As I've said many times, we don't stack people on top of each other. So basically, if you have an area, a geographical area that's yours, it's got to be reasonable, of course, but we don't stack people on top of each other so that we can utilize the collective brain power of the group for all the competitive advantages that it gives. And at the end of the day, it's just a fantastic group of people, and it's just great to be a part of a group in this business. Sometimes it feels like a lone wolf out there, and this is a real cost-effective way to do it. We've been going on 5 years. We got 5 years of content, 5 years of great people, and it's just an awesome group to be a part of. So if high-end one-on-one coaching maybe is not what you're looking for at the moment, but you want to join a great mastermind group, then the Deal Finders Academy is for you. So reach out to us, and we'll see if we can fit you in. Now, that pretty much wraps up what's going on with, our housekeeping items. But I'll get in with what's going on with me and TTM in the main topic of this week's show, because it ties in very nicely to the main topic, which is network marketing. So without further ado, let's get into the rest of the show. All right, Real Dealz podcast listeners, I want to talk quickly about our show's sponsor, Iron Bridge Lending. If you guys have not reached out to Iron Bridge already to talk to them about funding some of your upcoming flip projects, I highly encourage you to do so. I've known the owner of Iron Bridge for a very long time. I've personally borrowed millions of dollars from them over the years to do a number of different projects, and I can say without a doubt, they are the best hard money lending company I have ever come across, and that is the reason why they are the sole sponsor of this show. I've had a lot of other companies reach out to me and and want to sponsor this show, but I just won't do it. I feel like I need to be genuine in who we have sponsoring the show, and it needs to be somebody that I've personally done a ton of business with. So I personally vouch for their ability to be the best, hands down, in the world of hard money lending. You won't find better programs, you won't find better terms, and they're lending or will be lending in over 20 states. So chances are, if you're hearing this in whatever state you're in, it's definitely worth it to check out their website, reach out to them, see if they're lending in your state, and if they are, I would absolutely encourage you to do business with them. Another very cool thing to note is that they have a program for most rehabs where you can actually borrow up to 90% of the purchase price. Now, this is given the fact that you are actually buying a deal, which if you're listening to the show, that means you probably are. But if you have an actual deal on the table, they'll fund up to 90% of your purchase price, and they'll even give you rehab funds on top of that, which means that it only takes 10% down to get into a project, which is unbelievable in the hard money world. So do yourself a favor, reach out to Iron Bridge Lending, have a conversation with them, see if they're a good fit for you and for your next project. I can guarantee you that you'll be happy that you did. All right, let's talk turkey, right? What's that from, Goodfellas or something? I think the movie. We're not going to talk turkey, although we're going to talk turkey in a roundabout way. We're going to talk about free marketing, aka network marketing. Now, you guys have probably heard many a podcast that I've done, if you're listening to this one, and within those podcasts, I probably talk a lot about the different direct-to-seller marketing channels that we use in order to generate leads to come into the business, and they're very effective. And we use them every single day, but that doesn't mean you can't do other things on top of it, right? And these other things that I'm talking about are basically free marketing, but let's differentiate here real quick. So the different types of marketing that we do that's direct response, directly to sellers, is we do direct mail, we do RVMs, we do text, we do emails, we do Facebook ads. We've occasionally done PPC, not as much these days, but this is all paid marketing. This is stuff that it costs you money to get leads to come in the door. And so a lot of you guys, the big, hot button phrase is KPIs. Are you tracking your KPIs so that you know everything about everything? And which is good to know, but it's a hot button thing these days, that's for sure. That's why I'm kind of poking fun at it. But basically, when you're spending money on marketing, you need to know what your cost of acquisition is. And so that's why it's important to track these things. But when you're doing other things that are free and just take time, there really aren't any KPIs to track, right? Other than the amount of time that you put in. But the time is something that you put in over time, and it kind of spreads out. It's like you're investing in building relationships. Think about it that way, right? Now, there's some actual marketing things that you can do in the process that are tangible, but over time, you're trying to build better and better relationships with reoccurring lead sources, we'll call it, right? All right, so let's talk about network marketing. Number one, what is it, right? I say it and you probably are thinking Amway, right? You sell your family and friends on soap and dishwasher, products and, whatever, right? The things that you would buy every day that you could buy from somebody who sells them to you, directly via Amway or whatever that company is. That's not what network marketing is in this regard, right? We're not talking Amway. We're not talking about that annoying friend that says, hey, come over to my house. I'm hosting a dinner party. And then they sell you on why you should get into network marketing. That's not it, right? What I'm talking about when I say network marketing is who talks to sellers all the time, right? Who are people that you know that talk to people that need to sell real estate? That is really what it comes down to in a nutshell. And you can break that down into a variety of different categories or different types of people, right? So the first and foremost, which is the most obvious, is realtors, right? Realtors, of course, talk to sellers all the time. Now, do they talk to sellers that have houses that need to sell to investors all the time? Not necessarily, but they do talk to sellers all the time. And some of those sellers are properties that just aren't best suited for the retail market. I went and looked at one this morning again. We put one under contract a couple of days ago from a realtor that I'll talk about here in a minute. But I went and looked at one this morning, right? And the house is basically a quasi-hoarder house. It's packed with a bunch of crap. It's dated. It's got quite a bit of deferred maintenance. It's not ready for the retail market. And it's an older gal that owns it, and she lost her husband. She doesn't have the energy, the bandwidth, the desire to clean the house out and make it retail ready. It's just not possible. And so those are the types of sellers that realtors talk to, that then they need a solution for those sellers that's not a retail buyer. And so they look like really, we'll call them rock stars or super realtors, to be able to connect the dots with somebody like myself who can give them a fair priced offer for what it is that they have, which is a house that has deferred maintenance, and it may be a hoarder house that has some mold, it has some issues, it's been smoked in, whatever it is, right? So that's one avenue. Another might be probate attorneys, right? Probate attorneys deal with people that have to close probate. And generally, when they close probate, they have a large asset. That large asset is a house that has to be sold so that the creditors can be paid off, or that asset can be turned into cash. That cash can then be distributed to the next of kin, right? That's somebody or a profession that you can market to that can be a reoccurring stream. So I want to just kind of break it down here real quick and rewind. So when I first started in this business, I didn't know a single soul, right? I didn't know anybody in the real estate world. Like literally, I didn't know a realtor. I didn't know anybody. And that's when I got into the loan side of the business. And I had to learn really quickly that I needed to network with people in order to get business. Now, the challenge back then is that realtors didn't want to talk to loan officers because loan officers were kind of looked at as like the redheaded stepchild in the real estate business. So it was very difficult. But the same rules apply when you're an investor, right? Sometimes you're looked down upon, but if you can build a good enough brand, you can get in front of people the right way, then all of a sudden you're an extreme asset. Just like loan officers, some of them built very strong relationships with realtors, and instead of being looked down upon, they were like their go-to person, right? And that's the way you want to be on the investor side as well. And so sometimes it takes a little bit to kind of pierce that veil with probate attorneys and realtors and other sources as well to kind of be that go-to guy. But over time, you can build those relationships, and once you do, you're a great place for them to kind of say, hey, I got this deal. It doesn't fit retail. What do you think, right? And so it's a free lead source. So what we've done is we've basically built a brand, right? We've built the TTM brand here locally, and that has allowed us to get in front of a lot of people. And we've done it a variety of different ways. And so what I want to talk about is how we've done it and what we do to continue to further these relationships each and every week, right? Because we've got our paid leads that are coming in, but then every month, we have a cycle that we go through of free marketing, and that free marketing generates a ton of leads that we go through and we sift and sort and we go see stuff and we see if we can get anything to stick. So it's a really important thing. So what do, right? Well, first and foremost, something that we do that nobody else does is we started a local podcast, right? The local podcast was initially all about giving and just kind of connecting the real estate community. Now we use that local podcast that talks all about local real estate. We put out an episode this week that just talks about, what it is that we as TTM buy. We've run an ad on it a number of times, and that in itself generates a lot of leads. But more importantly, that podcast connects with a lot of realtors in ways that any other form of marketing cannot. Just like you guys are listening to the show right now, it connects in a way that no other form of marketing can really do. And so we use that and we leverage that to create relationships with realtors and people that listen to the show that talk to sellers that may have properties that may not be in retail condition. And that's worked really well for us. Now, on top of that, and something that you guys can do, because not everybody has a local podcast, or very few people do, pertaining to real estate. But what we also have done is we've pulled a list of every realtor in our market, right? Every single one of them. And every month we email those people and we say, hey, guess what? This is what we're looking to buy. And oh, by the way, I'm also the co-host of the Portland Real Estate Podcast, which goes a long way because it helps further kind of pierce that veil that I talked about, right? It gets us in because a lot of them listen to the show. And since they listen to the show, they don't consider me spam marketing. And since they don't consider me spam marketing, they actually respond and send us leads. And, a lot of times when you first start doing this, you may not get a lot of responses because they think you're spam marketing. You just have to stay with it. But, like I said, there's one consulting client who did this, went and got the list, sent an email. First email blast that he did, he ended up getting a pocket listing deal and he flipped it out and he made $31,000, right? Totally cold, right? It didn't take warming up the list, didn't take multiple touches. He did it on the first one. Now I can't tell you that's going to happen for all you guys, but happened for him, right? And so every time we send out that same email, we get, I don't even know how many leads. I mean, probably 10 leads a day for a sustained amount of time to look through. Just like the one I went and looked at this morning. It came from an email blast that we did earlier this week, and I responded to her. We set it up, the appointment for this morning. I went and looked at it, and there it is. So that's a big thing that you can do that's completely free. All you got to do is just leverage your title company probably. They can get you the local MLS data for all the realtors in your area, get their email addresses, put together a nice, blast email that doesn't look like spammy, but it kind of tells them how you can help them maybe earn more commissions, right? Maybe they can double end stuff or they can get list backs. But more importantly, what it is that you buy that maybe the retail market doesn't buy. So that's a big thing. We also do that with probate attorneys, right? We've scraped email addresses for all the probate attorneys that we can in Portland, and we blast them, and we do the same thing with probate attorneys. And we also mail them too, but the emailing is free, and we also have called them. And those that have responded, we've really worked building the relationship with them. And that's a big thing too, because building relationships with probate attorneys is huge. You have to look at doing that with agents the same way. So if agents respond to you and maybe it's not a deal, use that response and that conversation to build a relationship. That relationship can then further down the line maybe generate a deal. So just because they don't have a deal for you right now, it doesn't mean that they won't later, but that's where the work comes in. That's where you're cultivating and building upon this relationship that starts with a small email conversation. So that's a very important point to note. And we do the same thing, like I said, with probate attorneys. When they respond, now we got one, right? We've got a potential relationship that we can build on, even if there's not a deal there to buy at that exact moment. And that's the key to this whole thing with network marketing. Now, another thing that we do, and we've done lately, is we have used listings. Most of the time we list in-house. It's just the way that works. But we have a big listing coming up that we're probably not going to list in-house because we're, for a variety of different reasons, but it's a high dollar, very much like it's the unicorn type listing for agents. And so what we've done is we've used that and we've leveraged it to partner with the number one agent in all of Oregon for the last 9 out of 10 years to potentially have them represent us, them remaining nameless at this point in time. But by doing that, I've now been able to leverage that relationship because he's so involved with real estate within the areas that we want to be that it puts other deals in front of me. So we put one under contract earlier this week because of that meeting, because of that listing that I was willing to give to an outside party, just because I feel like it'll be better representation for the end product. But I've leveraged that give to get something in return, and that get will be a reoccurring get. So that's something that you guys can do as well. I know a lot of times we're fixated on trying to pay as little commission as possible and this and that, and most of the time I completely agree. That's why we have in-house representation for 90% of our listings, if not more. But sometimes it works to take those listings, spin them off, give them to somebody, but when you give, it comes with an ask, right? And the ask doesn't have to be like a blatant ask, but you use that to build a relationship. That relationship then creates lead flow for you. You just want to make sure that if you're giving that listing to somebody, you know that you're giving it to an A player, and that A player knows what you're looking for. He's got his ear to the pipeline. He gets in front of a lot of opportunities, and they can deliver those opportunities to you. So that's a big thing as well. So basically using listings as bait to get in the inner circle of top producers or major players that can then deliver you deals. Big thing. And so, again, use interactions as a way to build relationships, even on non-deals, like I talked about before. And that's probably the biggest key to this whole thing. You want to just look at every conversation as an opportunity to build the relationship. And now you're building your network, right? If you build enough relationships with people, you'll have a lot of people that you know that think fondly of you, that think of you first whenever it is that they get a deal. Now, a couple other ways that you can do this. And there's one individual in particular that does this really well in our Deal Finders Academy, Mike Sumsky. He's put together a local group, a real estate investing group that meets up, and he runs it, and he uses that group to generate leads for him to look at or partner with people in order to do deals. And it works out great for the people that partner with him, works out great for him because he doesn't have to do much marketing in order to get a lot of leads brought to him that he can look at to see if anything fits, right? So setting up a local group where, maybe you organize it, you meet once a month, and then you help people along that are new in the business, that are out there just hungry, just hitting the pavement, trying to find leads. They bring them to you, and you can see if something works, right? Free leads, right? All you're doing is investing time in this meeting. And then from there, I know Mike looks at a ton of leads. I know a lot of other people that utilize the same model. Tarl up in, the Seattle area, same thing. There's a lot of people that use this model, but it works really, really well. And it's a great way to get yourself in front of all of the players in the market. And when they get a deal that they want to wholesale or partner on or whatever, who you think they're going to call, right? They're going to call the person they have the best relationship with that's most visible to them. So that works really well. And then lastly, of course, wholesalers. We don't buy a ton from wholesalers, but there are good ones out there, and the good ones leave enough meat on the bone for you to be able to buy a property, renovate it, turn it, make a reasonable profit. And sometimes those wholesaler type relationships can fill the gaps. Not every project is a home run in this business. It's just not, right? But if you can hit, you hit some doubles, maybe a good solid single here and there, but you try and keep your margins up. But, sometimes you got to fill the gaps with projects. And so having these different network marketing layers in place allows you to do that. So you're not purely relying on your direct seller marketing. Now, like I said, we do a ton of direct seller marketing, and that's where we buy the vast majority of our deals. But the network marketing stuff is free. And so we use, not all of the stuff that I mentioned here because we don't host a local meetup group. We've thought about it. We just don't have the time. And then, of course, we don't buy a ton from wholesalers, but I know there's good wholesalers out there and people photo stuff by me, but timing just hasn't worked out or whatnot. But we definitely hit the realtors hard. We hit the probate attorneys hard. And we do those things that can be reoccurring deal stream or lead streams for us just by investing in the relationships with these people. And it works out great. So if nothing else, I would say, there's a number of free things that you can do from this show. Take one of them and just go do it, right? Go create probate attorney email addresses, send them a letter, and then follow up with an email and hit them every month with emails, and then maybe get on the phone with the people that email you back, build that relationship, and you know what? They'll send you potential probates from here forward as long as you do that right. Do the same thing with agents. And guess what? You'll probably build a relationship with a handful of agents that will send you stuff before anybody else to have you take a look at it. That'll be pocket listings or stuff that's not ready for the retail market. So those are some great things that you can do to get your cost per lead down, because you're basically getting free leads coming in by investing in relationships and networking with people. And if you layer that on top of all your direct to seller activity, you've got yourself a successful business. And that's what we've been doing for years. We continue to do it. Like I said, a lot of it is intuitive, but I wanted to get a little granular on this show and kind of talk about the specific stuff that we do. But it's a great way to layer your marketing efforts. And there's just no reason why you shouldn't do it on top of the paid stuff to kind of even out your lead flow and ultimately even out your deal flow and make a better business for yourself. All right, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this and you can take some tangible stuff from it, implement it into your business, and do more deals. And that wraps up this week's show. I'll see you all next week. Oh, yeah, I've got a great interview for you guys next week. So stick around. I'll let you know who it is next week, of course. But got a great interview. Guy I've been chasing down for a while. Met him up at the PNW Expo a couple years ago. Saw him again this year. Says he'll be on the show next week, so stay tuned. I'll have a good one for you next week. See you guys then.